Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I realise I'm like super close like this. Really happy little
We're in there. Yeah,
whole lot on
why
my
not?
face. Yeah, we'll just give it a few minutes and wait for a couple to join. I think people usually slowly join and watch later on. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm watching.
no problemo. I'm
Busy
still
day today.
getting used to this whole
Yeah,
live, this Instagram live thing. I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes
I
to
know.
these things. I'm still trying to figure out.
I am, and I've done like
I'm like,
nine.
I
It's
should know this
amazing
stuff
me.
by now, but I
Yeah,
don't. So yeah, I'm
it's
always
something that
thankful when
pops up.
other people suggest the live. So that
Yeah,
way I don't have to take any responsibility for the tech. I'm like, I'll
yeah,
just turn up and say, hey, and it's
yeah,
working
yeah.
well for me so far. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Should we get started? And then we'll
Sure.
just wait for people to join.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. This is our first live of the year, actually. So very
Oh, whoop,
exciting.
whoop.
Yeah, my first one. So hopefully we'll get them going again fortnightly. And yeah, we just started with a conversation, finding out a bit about your early career, how you got involved in dance, and yeah, take it away.
Oh, goodness. You just throw me in like that, huh?
Let's do it like
I'm,
that. Yeah,
for your viewers who maybe don't know me right now, like I'm a
yeah,
dinosaur in this thing. Um, my career, in a sense, or my dance experience began back in the early 90s. Immediately and originally without the intention of it becoming a career. It was never meant to be a career. But I
yeah.
realized that it's the thing that I woke up thinking about day in
Mm,
and day out. And I thought, what would be really cool is if someone could pay me to do this
yeah,
and I
yeah,
could pay my bills and, function as a regular grown up, but still get to dance every day, still get to go to the studio and to dance with my crew and to maybe do a few gigs here and there. That would be the
yeah,
dream. So it's sort of do that. And of course, my background, community dance, it's hip hop, it's street dance. I mean,
yeah,
originally everything about it was very kind of R&B focused. So it was inspired by the early kind of R&B music videos, early kind of Hype Williams, the New Jack
yeah.
kind of
The good
era.
stuff.
The
The
good
good stuff.
stuff, that feel good stuff, exactly. It's that
Yeah,
tingly stuff. As soon as you hear the song in the club, you're like, this
yeah,
is my jam, even if it's not your jam. This is my jam. So that's where I come from. It's taken a while for it to develop into what it is now, where it's just, it's hyper stylistic, it's super musicality, it's really deep thinking, and yet another level is a sense of entertainment, but still we need to communicate a message. Dance for me originally was just
yeah,
turning up and rocking out.
yeah, yeah.
That was it. Anything else is a bonus. Anything else was a bonus back then. So I didn't have the foundations necessarily that you would consider a professional dancer would need to have in order to make any kind of, way into the industry. Didn't have them, had no
Yeah,
idea what they were, to be honest. I didn't
yeah,
really
yeah.
know any professional dancers back then either. But I
Mm,
did know that, steadily I was learning about, I started dancing in East London,
yeah,
and steadily other dance crews, I was becoming aware of other crews. And then, I'm seeing on music videos back then, we still had Top of the Pops, and you're looking there at the dancers on the show and you're
yeah,
like, oh wow, these guys have made it. This is
yeah,
epic.
yeah,
I want this so, so bad. Had no
yeah,
idea how I was going to get there. But bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, when I first kind of made this decision to leave university
yeah,
for what was meant to be my academic career in
yeah,
forensic pathology,
yeah.
and
Just
attempt
went for that one.
yeah,
Definitely that was
chopping
like
up
your
dead bodies versus, having a bit of a jam. It's a very different mindset. I'm sure there are
polar opposite.
connections somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah,
But making those steps into this industry, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, my community had always been really supportive of who I was. People I met, the camaraderie within the dance scene at that time was
mm,
always just, it was fun. Yes, it was
yeah,
competitive, but everybody had everybody's back, and we
yeah,
all secretly rooted for each other.
mm,
It wasn't, it was cutthroat in a sense, but nowhere near what it is now, I guess. Or maybe I was just
mm,
naive at the time. But I went in thinking that same energy would transfer in the industry.
yeah,
So that
yeah,
same
definitely.
fun and the big hearts and open minds would be what I'd get the moment I stepped into the industry. And boy, was I wrong.
Oh no.
Oh yes, like a brick wall.
Yeah.
Wrong. And I always say this, for the first couple of years in the industry, as with everybody, I know everybody kind of goes through this, but those first couple of years were exceptionally difficult for me. Firstly, any kind of kudos I had in the street dance and hip hop community didn't transfer into the industry at all. In fact, it was frowned upon. This idea that you could have any kind of standing as a professional dancer, based on the fact that you won a few battles and a few competitions and did a few showcases, was ridiculous. This idea, are you crazy? Where have you trained? What have you trained in? Who did you train under? What styles and skills do you have? What techniques do you have? How flexible are you? What dress size are you? And what do you understand about, this whole, industry that I thought, I walked into completely blindly. So it was a wake-up call for me going into this industry. And I learned a lot. I had to learn a lot very, very quickly. And I think, it got to a point, and it's funny because I was talking about this recently, it got to a point where I'd get used to going to auditions because that's what you did to get a job. You were rarely scouted or spotted. And there was, the idea of social media and YouTube or any kind of video streaming, it was like the stuff of science fiction movies back then. We didn't have that. So to be seen, you had to turn up and you had to fill in the application form and you had to submit your CV and you had to have your headshots and all of these things. And of course, this CV is full of all of the dance institutions you've trained at, everybody else you've worked for. My CV is blank. Like, my experience is like, I won this. And it was just really, really hard to even just get seen at that time. Nobody even wanted to look your way. I was refused from auditions day in and day out. I'd rock up to this audition really excited, thinking, it might be good if I can at least just learn the routine, because that's great experience for me, right? If you can turn up and just do the routine, sometimes you can treat it as like a free masterclass, can't you? Depending on who the choreographer is. And I'd turn up to these auditions, they wouldn't even let me in to learn the routine. They took one look at me, one look at my blank CV and just be like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here?
Rude, isn't it?
I mean, but back then, that's how they did things. This is how the dance industry functioned. This is how it worked. And you had to know someone, or you had to come from a recognized dance school or dance platform, and you had to have all this training behind you, or you had to have been invited by the choreographer, have any of that. Much of what I did was, down to gate crashing. I recognized that often in these auditions, agents played a key role in getting you into these spaces. So I thought maybe I could get an agent, and maybe if I can convince them to help me, that would be great. No agency was interested. Of course they weren't interested. Agencies took one look at me and said, how the hell am I going to do anything with you? You look nothing like our cohort of dancers. You don't have any experience, any training. Nobody had ever actually said, hey Kim, let me see what you can do. Nobody ever said that. They just took a look at me, on paper, face value, and just went, you do not have what it takes to be a professional dancer, point blank. So, in the early 2000s, I was making friends on the scene who were now graduating into professional dance. And of course, they had the look, and some of them had the training and the background. And even though, we met and we danced together on the underground and the street dance scene, they were able to sort of graduate to that like higher level professional plane. So they'd say to me on the sly, hey Kim, there's like an audition and we think we can probably get you in, do you want to come down? I'd be like, yes, tell me what time. I'm turning up and I'm gate crashing, let's go. So I managed to gate crash a few auditions, which is funny. And then people would look at me and they'd say to me, who are you with? How did you get here? Sort of thing. And I'd look across at like my friend's agent's name and lie, and I'd be like, I'm with them, and they go, okay, fair enough, And I got in and I got seen, And the moment I started to get seen is the moment, you know, people start to pay attention a little bit because, you know, I was plus size in this industry. It was unusual at that time to have a plus size dancer in the industry. And when I was able to pick up choreography, I wasn't the greatest dancer, but when I was able to pick up choreography and more importantly, freestyle really solidly, people sat up and took notice because it was unusual, because they hadn't seen this before. So I started to book really basic jobs, just, you know, maybe a step above extra work. You know, I'd be an extra in a crowd, in a club, and they'd film me doing a move. And, you know, that would be it, you know, sort of thing. So starting to book work that way, it made me realize that the thing that made me different was the thing that people paid attention to. So I should play on that. So I did play on that in everything that I could, you know. And back then it was easier to do in a sense because, you know, the standards were very set and rigid and archaic in a sense. So for me to come along and go, I'm going this way, it was much easier to do than it probably is to do now. And I think so my real big break that I talk about was going to the audition for Nike, somewhat accidentally, and actually going to support somebody else rather than being there myself, because that was one audition where I knew I wouldn't get away with being myself. You know, this is a brand and a company, which I loved, you know, which I really loved the brand. I bought into their mission and their vision and their identity and their apparel and their footwear. I loved it. You know, part of the reason for that, and I tell this story sometimes, is that, you know, back in the early days of being at school, when, you know, friends and other classroom peers, their parents bought them Nike trainers, my parents didn't buy me Nike trainers. My parents didn't believe in this idea of labels. You know, and so a lot of the trainers that I had were no name brand, or, you know, and I got a lot of teasing for that and a lot of ribbing, and, you know, people made fun of me because of that. And so in the back of my mind, you know, Nike was always number one when I was at school. That if you had Nike shoes, you know, you were it, you made it. So it was always in the back of my mind that there was this thing about Nike that I held, you know, in high regard. So I knew instantly this idea of an audition for Nike. And interestingly, at the time, I know the audition was for Nike, but I just assumed it would be for someone like them. I was like, it's not even a chance. I'm not going to embarrass myself. Just going to stay back. You know, and the long story short is I ended up going to this audition and booking this gig and then getting signed by them, all based on the idea that I questioned their brief and questioned their direction and questioned their angle. So, you know, it was a really interesting time for me. And of course, that propelled me then at that point. The moment you're backed by a company like Nike is the moment then your career really takes off. And I got to do some wonderful things. I got to travel. It was everything I wanted to do. I got to dance every day. I got to teach as well as perform. I got to represent the brand. I got to speak myself about my own, you know, experience and how I'd got into dance being my sport now, to be able to hopefully inspire other women and young girls to get into sport or dance if that's what they'd like to do. So for me, that was just, it was everything. And that was the career I could never have envisioned for myself at all starting out, but it's kind of like where I ended up being completely different and somewhat antagonistic in my approach to everybody else. So that's basically the kind of short answer as to how I've ended up, or I had ended up as a professional dancer. Yes.
I love hearing that story. Like I've heard it maybe once or twice now, but it's always so nice to hear. I'm like, like you overcame a lot, and I just wanted to ask a question based off of that. You know, when you was like starting out, and you're kind of like, you're not fitting the brief, you're not really making any moves. You feel like you're hitting your head against brick wall. I'm imagining. Like, how did you kind of break through that? Like, was there any kind of mindset, or was it just like, they're wrong, I know I'm right, like, I know I've got this? Like, how do you kind of almost achieve that self-confidence?
Interestingly, you know, at that time, when we're talking sort of like my early 20s, when No, I didn't have a plan.
No. Yeah.
I didn't have any kind of framework or anybody to say to me, hey, stick at it. You know, you can do this, go for it. You know, I just kept hitting my head against the brick. But when you keep hitting your head against a brick wall, after a while, it doesn't hurt anymore. And the moment it stopped hurting was the moment I started to experiment with how I hit the wall. Now I figure out that I was better off hitting maybe with a fist or kicking it than I was headbutting it. And, you know, in terms of this being an analogy, it was about my approach to these ideas and these preconceived notions of what a professional dancer should be and how it's supposed to work in the industry. I started to experiment a bit with it because I had nothing to lose. I hadn't paid for, you know, a massive dance, you know, education. Nobody really had particularly high expectations of me in the industry anyway. Nobody really thought I was going to make it. So I had nothing to lose. So I could play about a little bit with how I approached it. And I could afford to be, as I said, a little bit antagonistic in the way that I approached it and how I questioned people and how I questioned ideas. You know, what is a professional dancer supposed to look like and why? Are they all supposed to look like that? If women are in dance, why can't they do hip hop without being half naked? Why can't they be seen as something of substance within a hip hop video? You know, and I was asking these questions and again, I didn't necessarily have a platform for it. So I wasn't able to get it out like I would be able to now, of course. But at that time, it was enough to, you know, one person would say, hey, yeah, listen, no, I agree with that. That's a good question. You should be, these are the questions you should be asking. And it empowered me just to keep on going. And it got to a point where it was less about how do I get this job and more about how do I change perceptions in the industry. So that became a different goal for me. And it just it got to a point where it was really, you know, that was everything I thought about. It wasn't this dream of, oh, I want to be in front of an audience or do an amazing music video or work with an artist. It was, I want to change the mindsets of an entire industry. I want to show them that just because I don't look like this doesn't mean I'm not entertaining to watch, and it doesn't mean I can't throw down when it comes to this, you know, platform or this channel or this video. So that became my thing. So I guess in answer to your question, it just got to a point where I became and it does happen, you know. There will come a point if you just keep going where it starts to get numb, and then you realize, hang on a minute, now I can afford, with nothing to lose, I can afford to do this. I can afford to play about with who I am and how I fit in this. So ultimately, that was how I sort of got over it. And I think what happens nowadays is, you know, dancers who invest and I've seen people seriously invest financially, emotionally, physically into this career and this idea, who think that should they put a foot wrong or make, you know, a step somewhere they shouldn't, that the whole thing is over. It's this idea that we can't make mistakes. Everything has to be perfect and we have to follow this very perfect, progressive, linear career path in order to make it to where we want, you know. And I think nowadays that's the problem. Everybody thinks there's something to lose. And actually, we haven't got anything to lose. And everybody could potentially do this their own way, but everybody's scared that they have something to lose. And that's where the issue comes. And it becomes your own sort of psychological demon. It's the thing that holds yourself back. You think everybody's watching you right now. You think everybody's paying attention to your every move because they want to see you fail or they want to see how you get this wrong. And nobody's watching you.
No one's watching.
About that. No one's paying attention to you right now. So even though you feel like they are, because you're on social media and it feels like your every move can be seen. So you're allowed to experiment with this a little bit. And that is the best way to get over or get across this cavern of, how do I get through? How do I challenge people? How do I challenge ideas? How do I let people know that I'm here? I've got something to give. Maybe something, it's a little bit new and a new direction. It's by getting out there, taking a step and doing it versus sitting back and waiting for that moment when you can just go, oh, here's my moment. They've called on me now. Let's go. If I waited for the industry to call my name and say, Kimberly, you're up, dude, I'd still be
It
sat in a
wouldn't have happened.
tracksuit studio in the back end of East London. Yeah, hair just going, is it me yet?
Any time now.
Seriously.
Oh my god. Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. But it's so true, and I think what it sounds like to me is like you kind of realized you connected with your values, like what was important to you, and that was able to translate into your dance and into your. That's how you made a name for yourself. That was like that was unique to you. No, that's really good to hear. Super inspiring. Yeah, yay for East London. Yeah, loving all. There's a few comments. Yeah, best give it the love. Yeah. So, yeah, that was a lot. Okay. So, how? I feel like I'm still absorbing everything. My brain is working so slow. The weather is like slowing me down today. What do you think then? I guess obviously you come from a time when there was no social media, none of this that was helping dancers. Like, what do you think their struggle is now? Like, if you're looking from an outside point of view onto the dance industry, like newcomers to the industry, what do you think they're like? Not necessarily struggling with, but maybe it's like their challenges.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is, I mean, again, social media has been a blessing and it's been a curse.
Yeah,
in a
100%.
sense, because now, as a dancer and performer, from the moment you say, I want to get involved in dance, you are constantly bombarded with what everybody else is doing across the globe at every level. You have access to everything that's happening in dance nowadays. Here, in Asia, in the US, you know, we had no idea back when I first started what they were doing outside of London, if there was an outside of London for dance. You know, we kind of, I guess, naively thought that we were here in East London. There probably weren't many like us outside of this space. Yeah. There were, of course, there were other dance organizations just like us growing and getting started, but it was insular. So you got to almost find your identity and hone your craft in a limited space, which forced you at that time to find the thing that made you special, to find your secret sauce. Nowadays, it's very difficult for dancers to, and those, especially those coming into the industry, to allow themselves to color outside of the lines when everything in society and everything on social media tells them that they should look like everyone else and fall in line in order to be liked, in order to be accepted, in order to be considered as somebody to pay attention to. So, you know, this is, whilst we've got this incredible platform to be able to showcase who you are, at the same time, it is feeding you an image of works supposedly in the industry. Now, you then decide that you're going to fall in line because you've noticed that when this person does this in a music video, they get lots of likes. Or if I do this in my dance video, maybe I'll get lots of likes too. Yeah. And, you know, of course, the opposite. It has the opposite effect. The opposite happens. You end up blending in with thousands of other dancers just like you from all different backgrounds and all different levels, reducing your chances of ever being seen and noticed to near zero. Yeah. And the thing is, this isn't something that's limited to the dance industry or the entertainment industry. This is happening across many industries, you know, creative industries as a whole. But it's sad to think that dance is one of the few careers that you could have that allows you to fully express your identity and your ideas. And dancers are doing everything they can right now to downplay or even hide their individuality. It's really unfortunate that that's where we are now, because we want to fit in this new mold, this social media mold. And that transfers into, you know, entertainment. We see it now in music videos. We see it across the board with, you know, artist performances and film and all sorts. Everything begins to look very similar. And there are a handful of choreographers that you can recognize globally in terms of style. So now
Yeah.
I can turn on the television, I can watch the Super Bowl halftime performance, and I'll know immediately who choreographed that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know who that is. You know, so
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
got a handful of people with an identity who figured out a way to really get it out there,
Yeah.
and everybody else just falling in line. What happens when that handful of people are finished? Where is
Yeah.
our industry?
Yeah.
You know, where does it go? And it's because everybody's afraid to say, hey, this is who I am. And those, you know, the handful of choreographers I'm talking about now, they are, in theory, don't tell any of them I've said this, though they'll probably watch it afterwards. They are, in theory, on their way out. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
we are
I hit.
looking towards the
Yeah.
next generation now.
Yeah.
And I can't see I can't see much in terms of the next generation. I see some potential. I see people
Yeah.
that excite me and I think, oh, they could be really good, but
Yeah.
not if they decide to put themselves in a box and stay there. So
Mm.
that's the thing that worries me now, and the struggle I think dancers are going to have going forward into the industry is being able to find an identity, stand behind it, and yell from the rooftops, I'm different, pay attention.
Yeah. It's having the confidence to do it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Having the confidence is the key thing. Because I think everyone's got it. Everyone kind of knows it, but we'll just be like, oh, no, because I might get hurt. Do you
Well,
know
that's
what I
it.
mean?
That's exactly it. You're right.
Yeah.
It's this idea that I might get hurt. Where does that come
Mm.
from? What does hurt even mean in
Yeah.
this sense? Oh, wait, somebody might actually go, oh, I don't like that much. Oh, great. So you're now going to define your entire career based on.
Oh, we'll come back.
I've lost you.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Well, you
There we
froze
go.
then. Yeah,
Yeah,
go on.
sorry. I was just saying, you know, if I defined my entire career based on somebody's opinion,
Yeah.
again, I'd be sat in a corner waiting for somebody to like what I had to say. In the beginning, nobody liked what I had to say because it went against everything that the industry believed in the late 90s and 2000s. So on base,
Mm.
you know, your future on the opinions of few. In fact,
Yeah.
the opinions of few, in theory, do not matter.
Yeah,
And
they
I
don't.
always say, you know, there's a very loose rule that I follow in that, you
Mm.
know, the only opinions that matter to me are those of the people who pay me
Yeah.
and those of the people I pay.
Nice. Yeah. That's
If
a good
you are
one.
neither, if you are neither, then your opinion, sure, I'll listen to it, but it has no
Yeah.
bearing on what I'm doing and the decisions I'm making. So
Rule. I like that rule. I'm going to take that rule. That's a good one.
it's yours. It's yours. You can have it.
That's good. Yeah. I had a question that's gone. Oh, yeah. Amazing. I did have a question. It's gone, but I'll ask my same question that I ask everyone else. I don't know if it's necessarily needed now, but if someone could come to you, I feel like we kind of covered it, but if someone could come to you at the start of your career and go, here's a bit of advice, what would it be?
Listen, there's a list.
Oh, okay, cool.
I've got a list.
All right then.
There's always, I mean, been asked this question a few times before, and there's kind of three things that always jump out at me. The first one is there's no such thing, believe it or not, as making it in the dance industry.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting idea. Being a professional dancer is very rarely a means to an end, especially because, you know, every time you do achieve the thing that you set out to do, during the process of achieving that, you probably won't realize it, but subconsciously, you'll have raised the bar in your own mind and given yourself a new goal to attain. So it's almost like you get there and then there's this feeling of deflation because you're like, well, this isn't it. Well, it never was going to be it, you know? So you get to dance for a particular artist or do a particular dance gig or achieve a particular dance goal. And then you're like, well, why doesn't this feel like everything? It's because already you've started thinking towards the next step, exactly the next stage. And of course, every step you make moving forward, it opens your mind to more of what's possible. Or more of what you can do. So you can't go into dance, especially not as a professional, and think you can win and walk away.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, you know, it doesn't work like that. It's an ongoing process of development, which means that in theory, you will never win. And that's why it's so important, I think, that you don't place your value as a professional dancer or as a human being on your ability to win or succeed. It's more important to place your value on your ability to just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
To just keep taking step forward, learn as quickly as you can, and find joy in that process.
Yeah.
And that took me a little while to work out, and it was frustrating as all hell in the beginning, because I was like, why doesn't this feel like everything? And it's because it's just an ongoing process. So that's the first thing I wish I didn't have to go, someone had told me. The second thing, which is one that I kind of was able to figure out myself, but I see it time and time again now, and it is this idea that you can't be a success by imitating the success of others. You can't do it. And I've been talking about this again a lot recently. It's like there's this belief with dancers and artistically driven creatives that they can achieve the same success either financially or in terms of their visibility if they copy what other successful dancers or artists have done before them. And it just doesn't work like that. It can't work like that. I mean, sure, copy the sentiment, you know, copy, you know, those high levels of motivation and grit or resilience, but it's not possible for you to reach what you think is the top and sit alongside others you view as being at the top by following some kind of step-by-step guide, you know, as to how they got there. It just doesn't work. You've got to be completely unafraid to carve a lane out for yourself. There aren't any shortcuts, I'm afraid. There just aren't any. And anyone that tells you there is a shortcut, they're probably going to charge you for the privilege. And, you know, there just isn't a shortcut. You know, there is not. And anyone that you consider to be successful, you know, who seemingly has shortcut the process, it looks like they've been an overnight success or they got there quite quickly. That's, you know, something. Either they've been going a long time and you haven't realized it, or that success is going to be very, very short-lived. As soon as you see you won't see them anymore. That's kind of, you know, how it works. And the power of all of this is very much in the failure, you know. And I say failure in the traditional sense of the word because I don't really believe in failure or this idea of failure, but I believe that you can try a thing and see what happens. And either it's going to work or you're going to learn something that you didn't know before you began. And both of those are a win. Both of those will lead you to success. So it's about recognizing that you've got to carve your own path for this. You've got to find your own space to do this and be unafraid to do so. And again, when I say unafraid, it's I'm not saying that you should be fearless, because that's nigh on impossible. You can't. You're biochemically rigged to have fear. It's there for a reason. But walk towards the fear rather than away from it. Think about the uncomfortable action rather than the thing you can do really easily. That is where the growth is going to happen. And thirdly, I guess, you know, the last thing I wish I'd been told, in a sense, and I know lots of dancers are being told this right now. So, you know, they might have heard it again, but I don't believe they're listening. Is that dance in all of its glory in a professional capacity is still a business.
Yes, it is.
What that means is, if you're to become a professional in this business, you're going to need to recognize that you'll have to understand how to run a business. And I know, you know, many dancers have spent fortunes on professional training, spaces, academies, schools, you know, all of these places, prestigious, you know, teachings behind them. But all of that is absolutely useless unless you know and understand the basics of brand marketing and sales. Like, I mean, absolutely kiss your dance degree goodbye, screw it up, throw it away. Means absolutely nothing now more than ever. if you think that you can build a sustainable career on having a few dance styles and a bit of flexibility in your back pocket, it's over. You're done. You know, the way the world works is not only completely different, but the way you need to make it in an industry like any other industry, if you are going to step into it as a freelancer or self-employed dancer of any description, you're going to need to understand the basics of business. Again, everyone's saying it, no one's listening.
Yeah, no one's doing it. Yeah.
Which is why I'm excited to be having this conversation with you right now, Fern, considering what you're doing with Dance Integrated.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there we go. Those are the things I wish I'd been told when I began.
Oh, so much knowledge in this. I was going to say IGTV in this live. It's going to be an IGTV. But yeah, I think that links really well onto what we're going to talk about next. So anyone that's watching, or anyone's been watching us on social media, we are running a masterclass with Kimberly J next Thursday, which I am so excited for. It's our first masterclass, and it's just going to be so insightful. So if anyone who doesn't know, Kimberly is an amazing business coach now, transferred into careers, and if you're lucky to get coached by her, it's pretty good. But yeah, we're going to be running this masterclass next week. Tickets are live. We're running a discount code at the moment, so just have a little look on our Instagram. But yeah, we're going to be covering all of this, so confidence and goal setting, and Kim's going to be going over all branding and business skills, and it's just going to be hopefully the kickstart that a lot of people are going to need. And also we're going to follow you up on it as well. It's not just his masterclass, you're done, see you later, hope that was good for you. We're going to hold you, and I'm going to hold you accountable, and we're going to keep with you every step that you need afterwards. So we don't want to just be like, because I think there's a lot of stuff going around which are amazing, but it's kind of like you learn it and then you're like, okay, now what do? I have it. How do I put it forward? So that's the idea, is we're going to help you make things happen for yourself. I don't know if you want to add any more onto.
Yeah, I mean, you sold that really well. No, I mean, the whole point of I guess the class is, it's a combination of both Fern's experience and mine. And we've called it the Bounce Back Like a Boss masterclass for dancers. The idea being that in this time now, when the industry is at a standstill of sorts, if you like, you could be using it to just level up your skills behind the scenes. So in terms of, again, understanding what it is that you want from the industry, how it is that you're going to get there, and more importantly, how the industry is going to view you when you take steps back into it. Or if you've not been into the industry yet, i.e. you've graduated, this whole thing shut down, you're like, oh, what now? This is about preparing and giving you these foundations and these skills that might have been jumped over in your dance school, maybe, probably, to help you to make sure you have what you need just to get started. And of course, it's a masterclass. It's an hour and 15 minutes long. It's not everything. We can't teach you everything. We wouldn't teach you everything, because again, that goes against entirely what we believe in. But I want to give you some pointers. We want to be able to just give you a little bit of direction, things to think about that you might not have thought about before. And whilst we're doing the masterclass, we'll send you some worksheets as well, so you can run through your scenario and your situation, making sure you're applying what we're saying and what we're discussing and teaching to your situation, so you can take action straight away. So this isn't something you watch and forget about. This is something you immediately action. We're going to send you away to think about it for a bit, and then we're going to chase you up afterwards and say, hey, what happened with that? What did you do? What steps have you taken to prepare yourself to be ready when this industry opens, to get ahead of the herd? So I'm excited for it. I really am. Of course, the dance industry is always going to be close to my heart. I rarely get to do much in terms of dance industry. A lot of my work now is either corporate, or now I do lots of work with other coaches as well. I adore them. I love working in the spaces that I do, but my heart belongs to dance, and it always will. So if there's anything that I can do to be able to level up our dancers and just show them how they can find opportunity in spaces where other people around them are saying, hey, no, that's not a thing. You can't do that. You must do it this way. This is the way, I'm one person, as you know, there's always going to be defiant. There's always going to encourage you to make defiant moves to reach your goals, to hit your targets, to achieve the things you want to do in a way that you want to do it, because I wholeheartedly believe that you can. So that's our masterclass next Wednesday, 7 till 8:15 p.m. Thursday. Sorry.
Yeah,
I better turn
Thursday 28th.
I better turn up. Thursday.
It's Thursday. You see you sat there on Wednesday, like.
Yeah, I'm like, do this, and no one joined. Yes, Thursday, 7 till 8:15 p.m. And again, you know, we're focusing a lot of this on the dance industry, but these are transferable skills you could potentially use across other creative industries as well. So if you're not quite a professional dancer, or you only sort of dabble in dance and you're not sure, actually this could be something really useful for you across a lot of different landscapes. So definitely consider turning up, if not just to hear me waffle on for a bit longer again. I'm good at that.
It's good. It's nice. It's nice to listen to a good waffle. But just visit my website. The link's in the bio if you want to find out more. Always message me. My DMs are open. We're really excited. So hopefully see some of you there that have joined. Has anyone got any questions before we leave? This is usually where we kind of wait for 30 seconds. Everyone's like, no, we're good. But there was some comments as we go. I think there's just a lot of agreeing with it. I was like, oh, hi, Dennis. Dennis, if you're still there. Nice to hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I think blesses, So, I think we'll leave it there, and I'll put this up on IGTV. But thank you so much, Kim. It's been great. It's nice to have you on, finally. Really good. So, thank you very much, guys, and hopefully speak to some of you soon. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.